It only happens once a year, but what a day that is. If you have ever joined the fans who pour these gates on Memorial Day, you know the thrill and the anticipation of race day. The Indianapolis 500 is the greatest sporting event in the world, and these famous old straightaway bricks could tell 1,000 thrilling stories. Suddenly, it's time for the pace lap, the beginning of a 500-mile contest that has all the thrill and excitement of a World Series, the Kentucky Derby, and the Rose Bowl rolled into one. Yet the roar of the crowd, the thunder of engines, and the spectacle of speed when the green flag starts the race is only part of the Indianapolis story. The story in the speed is the story of driving. For this story, let's go back in time to the beginning of May and the beginning of practice. Long before the crowds and the competition, the safe driving story begins with champions at the wheel.
The track is now open for practice.
Days before the Indianapolis 500-mile race, the track is open for practice. Only 33, the fastest 33, will earn starting positions during qualification. Whenever practice begins, the first thought is not a fast ride, a safe ride. In the garages and the pits, the mechanics are putting the finishing touches. 68 entries. Speed is vital. Breakable rule of the speedway is, hey, for you or the professional, safety checks pay dividends in a long life. Helmets are permitted, which have satisfied rigid tests. Seat belts must be securely anchored to the frame of the car and equipped with quick opening buckles. The shoulder harness provides an extra margin of safety and keeps the driver securely in his contoured bucket seat. The driver has to be free to handle the wheel without fatigue and without fighting to stay in the cockpit. Special racing gloves give a sure and flexible grip on the wheel. A fire extinguisher must be in every pit and ready whenever an engine is started. Shatterproof goggles are worn by all drivers and always kept spotlessly clean. Only after a complete safety check are the cars ready for the track. A good driver never moves into traffic without a careful look around. Working up to speed slowly, he again looks over his shoulder. No burning of rubber to get going. When entering corners or when changing position on the track, the race driver looks ahead and looks back. At high speed, each man knows where and where not to pass. All these rules are carefully explained to new men during their rookie tests. No driver is given an Indianapolis license unless veteran drivers who watch from vantage points around the track are satisfied that he will follow the rules of the road. When returning to the pits or slowing down, for any reason, a hand signal is used to warn other drivers. The speedway has signals of its own, and each driver is under the control of these signals at all times. In their way, these signals are similar to those on the highway. This is the way the road communicates with you. Highway officials, like track officials, have the responsibility to keep traffic moving in a safe, orderly manner. Your responsibility, like a driver at the speedway, is to signal your own movements whenever you change speed or direction. Observing and using these signals is the mark of a good driver. Johnny Boyd has completed a series of practice laps. Chiki Hiroshima, mechanic of his car, is anxious to know how the car feels since adjustments were made.
Chassis feel today?
Gee, the chassis feels terrific. One thing in the engine department, but it seems to have a slight hesitation, Frank, going down the backstretch. I notice it more down the back straightaway than I do the front straightaway because of the brick. But I don't seem to be picking up the RPMs that I do.
Well, let's take a look at the plugs, Frank.
I think that'd be a good idea. Those times are real good, but it won't hurt to take a check.
Because my RPM reading down at the end of the straightaway is only about 64, 6,500. We should be turning about 67.
Oh, well, that's still pretty good.
Drivers, mechanics, and technicians swap information throughout practice sessions.
Everything's okay.
Telltale signs on the spark plug make it possible for Champion's engineers to give technical advice which will improve car performance. One more way of solving safety problems is to let another driver test hop your car. Bill Cheeseburg has just completed practice laps in Russ Congdon's car.
Russ, one thing I'd like to tell you about is this obstruction you have here on your windshield. These bolts and this high piece here, you can't see far enough ahead of you while you're driving the car, and this is kind of a hazard. As far as the car feeling, I think maybe if you raise the front end a little bit, the back end would quit trying to get out so much on you. And the engine seems to be running fairly decent. Maybe you could lean it out just a little more, maybe get a little more horsepower out of it. But the car seems pretty safe, gives a pretty good ride, and I think it's ready to stand in it just a little harder.
Okay, Bill.
This is the 12th car Cheeseburg has tested this year. When test hopping and practice ends, the mechanics set to work in the garages. A car may be dismantled half a dozen times during practice sessions in the never-ending search for speed and safety. The drivers can relax and take a moment to tell about their experiences. Parnelli Jones, a rookie at Indianapolis, talks with Fred Agabatian, a veteran of a dozen 500s.
Since your completion of your driver's test, tell me, how's it feel to be running the 144 miles an hour you're running already?
Well, Freddie, it's taken a little time to get up here, you know. In fact, when I finished the 35, I thought, how could anybody ever possibly run 149 miles an hour? But now that I'm learning slowly, and I feel that I'm doing it safely and using my head as much as possible to try to work up the speeds and learn a little each day.
Well, that's one thing that makes me real proud of you. Many of us old veterans that still are around and are able to develop these white sidewalls up here have learned a long time ago that you can't out-dare these machines. And I'm real proud of you, no kidding. Are you having any troubles at all?
Well, I have a little problems here and there, and I think that from talking to some of the other veteran drivers, and also you've helped me too, Freddie, and just working a little here and there, it's helped me out, and I feel that I'm doing it safely each time too, and well, that's the main thing to me.
Indianapolis has a long history of men and cars who had fun and ran safe. There is no better proof of this than the Speedway Museum, which stands just outside the main gate. This building houses one of the finest collections of racing equipment in the United States. Fred Agabatian can tell us something about these famous machines.
In 1911, this Marmon Wasp was the first winner of the 500-mile race. Ray Haroon drove at an average speed of 74 miles an hour. And this little item up here happens to be the first rear view mirror. However, in 1912, Joe Dawson drove this big brute, the National, to a speedway win in excess of 78 miles per hour. But by 1952, we had come a long way. I drove this car to a new qualification record, more than 139 miles an hour. Yet now, only a few years since my record-breaking run, average speeds in qualifications are nearly 10 miles an hour faster than my old record. On the highways, the same thing is happening. Speeds are going up, but there is one big difference. We race drivers know how to handle speed. It's our business. We're still running with a margin of safety. But what about the average driver coming off the street at 15 miles an hour and then turning himself loose on a 60-mile-an-hour throughway? Most drivers don't know it would take 366 feet for an emergency stop from 60 miles an hour. 23 car lengths, according to the National Safety Council. Speed is something that must be handled with respect. The men who sat in these cars knew that. They knew how to drive fast and break records, but only when the combination of car, road, and driver were absolutely right. The men who sat in these cars helped make the modern passenger car the safe, pleasurable, dependable machine it is. They blazed trails through half a century, using a heavy foot and a wise head.
In honor of the Speedway's 50th anniversary, some of the prize items in the museum are displayed on Race Day. Over 200,000 fans waiting for the start of the Indianapolis 500 see that the famous Mom and Wasp, winner here 50 years ago, can still get around the racetrack. But then the ceremonies are over, and attention turns to the new and modern racing machines, lined up to begin what promises to be the greatest Indianapolis race ever run. Roger Ward, winner in 1959, has the confidence of a man who has beaten this track and wants to beat it again. Only one man outpointed Ward in big car racing, A.J. Foyt, national champion. Foyt, a 26-year-old Texan, has run only 3 years at the Speedway, but he knows his way around. Eddie Sachs, ready at the pole position. Jim Hurtubise, known as Hercules and a favorite with race fans. Bill Cheeseburg stands by his machine. This is Cheeseburg's 6th year at Indianapolis. Johnny Boyd, another veteran, now ready to go in his 7th race. Jack Turner cinches up his safety belt and waits for the command to start engines. Gene Hartley, another of 33 drivers, all anxious to be on their way. Parnelli Jones, a sensational rookie, gets last-minute advice. But when the signal is given, gentlemen, start your engines, it is too late for advice. You are alone with your car, the track, and history. From the pace car, Tony Holman, president of the Speedway, signals the cars ahead. In the proud Indiana tradition, they begin the slow pace lap, which will lead to a flying start. For the 33 fastest cars in Indianapolis history, for 33 of its greatest drivers, and for the largest crowd the Speedway has ever seen, this is the time of their lives. Nowhere in the 3 3/4 hours of racing will there be a split second for relaxation or rest. They must run, or someone, perhaps more determined, will come through the pack to take the lead. Half through the pace lap, they wheel through the 3rd and 4th turns, heading for the front stretch and the green flag that starts the race. The pace car leaves the track. There's the green flag, and the race is on. A beautiful start. Eddie Sachs leads them down the straightaway with Jim Hurtubise outside as they reach the first turn. Out of the second turn, Hurtubise takes the lead. 33 cars string out, moving down the backstretch, with Hurtubise holding first place. Eddie Sachs is second. This is the fastest start in Speedway history. End of one lap. Hurtubise moving away. Eddie Sachs defending second place, meeting a challenge from Bill Cheeseburg. At the end of the backstretch, Cheeseburg takes second place. But Hurtubise, living up to his nickname, has built a 3-second lead by running 145 miles an hour. 3 enormous seconds. Only 8 cars choose to run with Hurtubise. The others fall back, easing the strain on their machine. Hurtubise runs the first 50 miles in less than 21 minutes, setting new records as he goes. Each man runs his own race against the clock, and against the track. They pass and repass, their clocks running faster, then slower. Each driver runs in his own private world of time, and out of time, they write the history of the 500. Hurtubise makes history for 30 minutes, setting a sizzling pace of 145 miles an hour. But even as he slows to pit, 5 cars led by Jim Rathman streak past. By running hard, Hurtubise has committed himself to a 4 pit stop race, and there is no timeout in the pits. Hurtubise drinks a cup of water while he waits and asks for another. But pit work by a 5-man crew is so smooth and fast, he doesn't have time to drink it. Rolling again in only 18 seconds, Hurtubise has dropped from 1st to 16th position. Parnelli Jones, the rookie who drives like a veteran, is leading the pack coming into the front stretch. There's trouble on the front stretch. Don Davis spins and comes to a stop in front of 160-mile-an-hour traffic. The crowd shouts a warning, sensing that more trouble is coming as Davis, a rookie, is slow leaving his car. He seems stunned and bewildered. Look out! Another rookie, A.J. Shepard, is out of control. Four cars tangle and come to a halt at the end of the straightaway, but no one is injured. Slow-motion cameras saw the accident in greater detail. Davis' spin was caused by a broken oil tank in his car, which sprayed his wheels with oil. Davis was skidding on ice for hundreds of yards in his wild ride, desperately attempting to bring his car under control. One car had already passed the stalled number 83 on the inside. But when Davis walked across that narrow corridor, Shepard tried to change direction and lost control. Shepard hit the wall, then hit Bill Cheeseburg's car. Another car, driven by Roger McCluskey, spun to avoid the cars ahead of him. Brilliant driving by Johnny Boyd took him around the trouble. But at that moment, Jack Turner, attempting to avoid the pileup, flipped. Turner landed right side up. Lloyd Ruby's car coasted slowly around the stalled cars toward the infield, where his engine was later restarted. In a few moments, all 5 drivers were out of their cars and safely in the pits, ending one of the most spectacular chain reactions in Indianapolis history. A slight cut on Jack Turner's knee is the only bodily injury suffered by any of the drivers involved in the crash. Helmets, seat belts, shoulder harnesses, and roll bars were important factors in preventing injury. 5 cars are out of competition. When the track is cleared, the green flag sends 24 cars back to high speed. A.J. Foyt leads, with Eddie Sachs closing in. Sachs is now in position number 2. Jim Hurtubise reaches the halfway point, 250 miles, and is out of the race. Engine failure halts a brilliant runner. Sachs and Foyt are locked in an all-out battle. Foyt, the national champion, retakes position number 1. After 2.5 hours of racing, only car length separates the 2 leaders. Then the crowd comes to its feet as Eddie Sachs makes his last scheduled pit stop. Before Eddie has come to a stop, A.J. Foyt roars past the pits, firmly in the lead. Every second that Sachs spends in the pits, Foyt gains another 200 feet. Foyt is running better than 145 miles an hour with 40 laps, 100 miles still to go. Sachs is away in 22 seconds. Out of the first turn, Sachs is up to full racing speed, but half a lap behind A.J. Foyt, who has not made his last scheduled pit stop. Here comes Foyt, the national champion, into the pits. There is a precautionary tire change, but something is wrong with the refueling mechanism. A high-speed, aircraft-type fuel nozzle refuses to engage a special fitting on the car. Frank Catania, the man in charge of fueling, fights the nozzle for 20 of the longest seconds of his life, but no fuel is delivered. Chief Mechanic George Bignotti makes a split-second decision to send him out. Unaware of the problem facing his crew, Foyt pulls away, ready to pick up the battle with Sachs. Does he have enough fuel to go the distance? His crew watches for him to come off the fourth turn. There he is, wheel to wheel with Sachs, and 80 miles to go. Late stop. Foyt doesn't know why, but he stands on the throttle, trying to stretch his lead over Sachs. While Foyt tries to gain the precious seconds he needs for a pit stop, his Bose Seal Fast crew borrow a fueling rig from a crew whose car is out of the race. Running low on fuel gives Foyt a temporary advantage. With less weight, his car has more speed. Sachs, straining to win the race, drives all out to keep up with the leader. Sachs is running harder through the corners, giving his tires terrific punishment in his bid for victory. Foyt is gaining, and his crew signals him to keep going until they're ready for him or until his engine begins to cough. A split-second lead, that's all Foyt can gain before his engine sputters. But Foyt's crew is ready. Here he comes, 15 laps short of victory. Foyt is forced to pit. Five seconds. 10 seconds. Go! Go! He's away in 15 seconds. But to Frank Catania, who handled the fueling, those few seconds may have buried a year of work and hope. Eddie Sachs has the lead with only 10 laps, 25 miles left to run. Slowing down to pit and refueling put Foyt 30 seconds behind. Sachs gets the good news, a winning grip on first place. His mechanic, Clint Bronner, gives him the okay sign. Right behind the pit fence, Nancy Sachs is waiting out the last laps. Only 10 miles to go now, 4 more minutes. The Bose team has just about given up hope. But suddenly the crowd sees something. Eddie Sachs is coming into his pit only 3 laps away from victory. Sachs has worn one tire past the safety margin in his all-out effort to stay with Foyt. Foyt had been running faster without a fuel load. Foyt's crew is wild. Here comes their man and a new chance to win. Sachs is out of the pits as Foyt roars past. 3 more laps to go. Only 7½ miles. Foyt takes position number 1. Roaring out of the pit, Sachs is less than 5 seconds behind him. Look at that man travel. Can he catch Foyt? The cars are on the backstretch now. There's nothing to do for a half a minute while the men battle for $100,000 in first prize money. It's Foyt. He's holding the lead. Two more laps. Bob Bose and George Bignotti are co-owners of the car that Foyt is handling. Sachs is closer. The white flag. 1 more lap. Sachs is only seconds behind, and he said he wouldn't quit until he won the 500. Less than a half a minute now. And there's the checkered flag for A.J. Foyt, national champion, and now the winner of the Indianapolis 500. Once, 24 years ago, Wilbur Shaw beat Ralph Hepburn by 2 seconds. But this 8-second margin is the second closest finish in Speedway history. The waiting is over. The Bose crew is on its way to victory lane. They'll greet Anthony Joseph Foyt, who at 26 is just about half as old as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Foyt has just won the biggest share of the biggest purse it has ever offered. The driver and his teammates will share almost $118,000 of the total Speedway purse of $400,000. Foyt drove magnificently, turning laps faster than his own qualification speed, yet saving enough in his machine to keep it running for the distance at a record speed. Foyt has written another page in the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The race is over. The crowds who have come to see this great once-a-year spectacle are on their way home. All of us drive wheel to wheel on the highway, not only today, but every day. We can enjoy driving and move safely on the highway with the right attitude toward the road, the car, and ourselves. Members of the Champion Highway Safety Program are taking this message of safety to schools, military bases, and civic groups throughout America. Drive like a professional with mental alertness, courtesy, and the knowledge that your car is in sound mechanical condition. If a professional driver saw you on the road, could he say, "There's a champion at the wheel"?